This is Ernie Alonzo with Haunted Orange County, and we are here at the infamous Wolfe Manor in Clovis, California, with owner Todd Wolfe. Todd, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for interviewing me.
Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about the history of the house and how you acquired it? Why did you purchase this property? What drew you to it?
Sure. In around 1999, I purchased at that time it was called the Clovis Convalescent Hospital. And I'm not from this area, so when I moved here years later, I wanted to open up a Halloween attraction and possibly to be able to refurbish this property. And so that's what I did. But the main part of my story is that I was a person that did not believe in spirits, ghosts. That wasn't even a part of my life. I always thought those were silly stories that people would talk about.
Yeah.
You know, oh, let me tell you a ghost story. I was a non-believer 100%. So after purchasing the property and not realizing that this house came with many more people than what I thought.
Awesome. Now, did you have experience in producing haunted attractions before? Is that why you purchased the house?
No. I basically wanted to purchase it to do a Halloween attraction for fun, and as well as refurbish the property in the future. So the Halloween attraction ran for around 8 years, as well as trying to update the house. And then when the Halloween attraction stopped, that's now my goal is to refurbish this property like other properties I have done in the past.
Okay. Now, one of the stories I had heard was that while some of the employees or the volunteers, wherever they were, that were working the attraction, they had some experiences that happened to them that kind of freaked them out. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah. Again, people have to remember I was a skeptic, so even when I heard an employee talk about being scared, I'm like, oh, okay. You know, when you're working in a Halloween attraction, it's dark.
Yeah.
So automatically your head kind of goes, crazy. Well, ironically, things were happening, but I didn't believe people until this one girl named Laura Downs, she showed up and wanted to work in the house one night. And at that point, all the positions were filled. But she begged me to, Todd, let me just work inside. Please, I'll volunteer for the night. So we put her in a position. And again, at that time, nobody was talking about it being haunted. I didn't know previously it was the Clovis Sanitarium. I did not know the history of this property.
Oh, wow.
Had no clue. And I wouldn't have cared because it didn't mean that it was haunted because I didn't believe it. So, Laura had an experience where she was standing in a closet, and while she was in the closet, it was dark. She came out and tried to scare some of our guests that were walking through a hallway. At that time, she said something put their hands on her shoulders and pulled her back into the closet. She then came outside to find me, and her face was white. I mean, I could tell something was very, very wrong with how she looked.
Yeah.
She was out of breath, and she said, Mr. Wolfe, can I please talk to you? And I'm like, sure. And took her off to the side, and she's panting, and I'm like, Laura, what's the matter? And she then told me her story, which confirmed the things I had happened to me after I purchased the property, that I had a breath of air blown on the back of my neck. I had been physically touched, but to be honest with you, I didn't tell anyone because I did not want to be a person to tell ghost stories.
Yeah. Now, Scott Grunwald, he mentioned to me earlier to make sure I ask you about the time that you were walked up on. Can you tell us something about that?
That is actually the room. And I have a conclusion to that story as well that Scott does not know about. So this is what I love about the paranormal. Like if something happens, I think as paranormal researchers, we all kind of question, well, I think we're supposed to question what happened.
Yeah.
I think that's what, instead of just automatically saying, oh, that was a ghost, oh my gosh. And I think that we are doing, I think it's a lot better that we question no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And so, with that said, before I was a believer, this room that we're in right now, which is Mary's room, it was right here, actually, next to me on the right-hand side. The bed was moved away, and we were probably putting this wallpaper up or decorating this wall with sconces or candles or something for the attraction. Right next to me was one of my head decorators, John, and when we were in here decorating for the Halloween attraction, I try to tell people, we had bar music playing. So it wasn't, we were here at nighttime, 9:30, 10 o'clock, working hard. Bar music was playing, loud. It's like Disneyland with the lights on.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a scary environment, and nor were we here to do that. We were here to work and get this attraction ready and opened.
Yeah.
So with that said, we're standing here working, the music's playing. Out of my peripheral vision, right behind you, there are two doors. One door is original, that is Mary's original door, and to the right of that is an exit door that was added later. Out of my peripheral vision, there was a complete black figure standing in that doorway. And literally I could see the head, the shoulders, down the arms, up the arms, down the person's waist. I mean, literally everything.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, immediately it just came, I used the word rushed, just went right up to me. I jumped and screamed. My friend John's like, Todd, what's the matter? I was amazed that he didn't witness it, and I was hoping he did, that it wasn't just myself.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, it was just myself. When people ask me what's the most frightening thing, I feel like that's the most frightening thing, because whatever it was wanted me to know it was here. Other times I've seen things, I may see it in a distance, or I may, I don't feel as frightened or whatever.
Yeah.
But that, for some reason, wanted me to know I'm right here.
Yeah. How long have you owned the property now?
Since 1999.
1999. So do you feel over time you've grown to have some kind of a spiritual connection with the location, or something that keeps you interested, invested in it?
Okay, that's an interesting question, and something I have one person I deal with, and that's Donna Raymond, and she is someone that is infatuated with this house as well as myself, but spiritually she's very connected to this house. She's been here many, many, many times, and so she is kind of like my guide to help me through this process. And a lot of things have happened to me. To be honest with you, I've called her up crying, not knowing what's going on with me, and she's told me, she said, Todd, she said, since you've owned the Wolfe Manor, you have opened yourself up 100% to believe in anything that's out there.
Yeah.
So she said, just relax, it's a gift. I am not psychic by any means, nor that is not even, that, because people say, do you think you're psychic? No. But there's many times where I'll have a dream about somebody that I haven't spoken to in 6 or 8 months, and when I wake up, next to my bed is my phone, and I'll have a text message from them first thing that morning.
Wow.
Some crazy, crazy things are happening like that on a regular basis, weekly.
Yeah.
And so Donna, that's what Donna says that is. And she said, you're just open, Todd. You're open to receive whatever's going to come your way.
Yeah.
So phone calls, whatever, it's happening. But I want to finish that one story.
Sure.
That with Mary's, the being rushed. A year ago, October 28th, I remember that because it was my son's birthday, and I had met some radio personality people, and they wanted to come down to the Wolfe Manor. So it was right before Halloween, and people want to come down here a lot and try to look through the windows. And so I asked my best friend Brett and the radio personality people to come down here and to be like security. And so at the same time I said, well, I'll give you guys a tour and we can do some investigating if you want. Well, they were just thrilled, and they brought a few devices and things to try out. So we are in this room again, and myself, I was sitting on that side of the room in a chair, pitch black. My friend Brett, who was very nervous,
Yeah.
he stood behind me holding onto my chair, so he knew he was secure. The other people, all 4 of them, were literally standing right in this area. So we were going to do an EVP session, so I was in the chair. I had, somebody else had the recorder, I think it was on the bed, and I was over there and I had the flashlight. So I turned the flashlight off, and I started the EVP session, and I usually start off by, hi, this is Todd Wolfe, I'm the owner of this house, as you know. We're all going to ask questions around this room. If anybody is in here that we can't see, please feel free to contact us. So everybody in that room, we all started asking questions. We stopped. I turned on the light, and I kept it facing down. And person number 1 over here looked at Brett and myself, and he goes, Brett, how did you get from the doorway over to Todd so fast? And Brett, we were just, I'm like, I don't know what? I don't even know why they asked that
Yeah.
question. And I said, I don't know. What are you guys talking about? And they said, Brett, how did you get from the doorway over to Todd? And he goes, I've been standing right here. The next person asked the same question. She said, no, Brett, you were standing in the doorway during the EVP session, and then you went over to Todd before the light came on.
Wow.
Third person was pissed because they thought we were teasing with them.
Yeah.
And I do not tease and I do not joke when somebody is in here investigating.
Yeah.
So the third person said, you guys are not being funny. How did you get from the doorway? And I was so excited because the fact is that 3 people all witnessed the same thing, I think is amazing and very rare.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think.
definitely.
It's very rare. We also can say we heard something, that's one thing, but to say that they all 3 say they saw the same black entity that I did many years ago.
Yeah.
So I was so excited. They were upset until we finally convinced them, and then we kind of redid it. We reenacted it. I go, you guys, you would hear Brett. You know, and if you stand up right now and walk back and forth, you can hear. You can't tiptoe in this house.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was thrilled that 3 people saw the same thing.
They're all able to validate the same thing.
The same doorway that I saw the same black entity standing in years later came back and let 3 people see it.
Tell us about the man baby that I heard about up in this room.
Sure. Terry, myself, and Scott, we were doing a webisode, and you know, our audience watching it, they like the fact that, you know, we get nervous in here, because we do. When it's at nighttime, you've been investigating all night long, you've heard the noises, you've heard the voices. Terry particularly would get nervous about having to go to the basement by himself. Well, actually he would, in all honesty. We'd be like, Terry, in this episode, why don't you just go in the basement by yourself? He's like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to go down there, guys. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
So we would tease him like that throughout, you know, every episode. Like, hey, Terry, you need to go in the basement. No, guys, I'm not.
Yeah.
So we started the episode up here in Mary's room, and Terry and Scott would bring their briefcases filled with devices and what have you. The show was over. We ended up in the foyer of the mansion. We went out the front door. We all said our goodbyes. Thank you for watching Wolfe Manor Live. I'm Scott, I'm Terry, I'm Todd. And we were done. And we still had the cameras rolling live. And Terry goes, wait a minute. All my stuff is still in the house. So we thought it was great. We're like, here's the camera, Terry.
Yeah.
You go in by yourself. And our audience likes that. They like that fear, and they feel like they're alone with Terry.
They put themselves in that position.
There you go. So we like that environment when that does happen. So Terry came in the house. Scott and I are laughing out in front because we know he's nervous. So he came upstairs. He came in this room. All of his devices were on the bed. And the funny thing is, what people don't understand is Terry needed both hands to pack everything. So some way, shape, and form, I don't know how he was doing it, but he was just holding onto the camera, and the camera was just kind of flopping around. And stuff like that. So right behind me, there was an image that was caught. And the editors, I believe, are the ones who saw it and contacted Scott and went, look at this. What does this look like to you? And it looks like a small being or something crouched over in a fetal type position or something. I'm not really for sure, but everybody saw it and everybody's looking at it, analyzing it. I don't know.
Now, there was a history, I guess, of abuse when it was a sanitarium by some of the staff here. And have you been able to interview some of the staff that worked here at one point?
Right. We're having a hard time having anyone admit abuse, you know, that they did anything. But we used to do ghost tours in here, and Terry, I believe, was the tour guide. Believe it or not, it was in this room that the lady broke down. And she just started crying and she started apologizing out loud. And Terry was like, what's this lady doing? I don't get this. And then she opened up to everyone. She said, I used to work here. And she goes, and I have to admit, I was not nice to the patients. And she goes, for years, I have felt horrible about how I used to treat the patients.
Now, are there any parts of this house in particular that you aren't particularly fond of being in by yourself or venturing into?
That I'm not fond of?
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. There's times where, like, if my mind isn't centered with the house, I just want to come in, I got to get something, grab this, grab that, and then I leave. But then there's other times where I walk in and I automatically feel uncomfortable. You know, and I always address the house. Usually when I walk in, I say hello. Before I walk upstairs, I'll say, Mary, I'm here. I don't know why I do that, but I'm here by myself, to be honest with you, and nobody really knows I do that, but I do, out of respect. I think there's just times where I do feel uncomfortable. It's kind of throughout the entire house. So it just depends if I have to go in the basement, which I don't like doing by myself. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
But there's times, sometimes you're fine, and sometimes there's, you know, I'm not.
Okay. Why don't we go down into the basement and tell us a little bit of some of the, I know Ghost Adventures had some situations down there, as well as Scott, I believe he told me about a crawl space down there that he had an experience in. So we'll go check that out.
Fantastic.
We are here in the basement of the Wolfe Manor, and Todd is going to tell us a little bit about where we're standing right now.
Okay. When you come down the main staircase, there's this first large room. We have found documents about the house that have talked about the basement was a room where they had utilities, water pumps, and they had a swimming pool.
Okay.
But back then they called it a water tank. So everyone wants to know where the water tank was. No, I'm sorry, not a water tank, a swim tank.
Okay.
So obviously it was above ground some way. So we're assuming it was right in this area.
Okay.
And some of these walls, I don't believe were probably here. So I bet you the basement was a lot more open. But also in the basement, they had a kitchen. So there's a room behind those walls that they had a kitchen set up. It's not there any longer, but we can see where the hole in the wall was, where the pipe went out for the vent. So they definitely utilized this basement a lot. That's when it was in a mansion, when it was built in 1922 with the Andrade family. When they lost it, then it became a closed sanitarium, and that's when they probably cleaned everything out of here. And from what we understand, this is where they stored the bodies after they passed.
That would make sense, it's a little cooler down here.
Yeah.
A lot cooler. I want to take us into one of the rooms that Ghost Adventures filmed in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Correct. Yeah, when Zach, Aaron, and Nick were here, they had a surprising guest show up that they caught on film.
Okay, let's go check that out.
Okay.
We're here in the pink room, or what is also known as the morgue, down here at the basement of Wolfe Manor. And Ghost Adventures actually did an episode here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that episode?
Well, when Zach, Aaron, and Nick were here filming, they had their ultraviolet camera, it was a video camera. They were getting it all set up down here, right about this area, and they were trying to figure out which way to aim the camera. But in all honesty, shocking to them, you know, and I think they do a lot of experiments like we all do, hoping to capture something.
Yeah.
But to capture something like they did, they were shocked. It's the first time they'd ever captured anything like that, from what I understand. So when they were using the camera, they were facing that direction towards that doorway and that couch, and all of a sudden they saw that purple haze enter that doorway, and Nick was freaking out. They then kept talking to the entity, and it came over, and I think at the first time it laid on the floor. You could see the purple haze on the floor in front of the couch. Then you saw it get up, leave, and then I believe Aaron was trying to get it to come back, and it didn't. Zach then got into the picture. He went over to the doorway and said, "Please come back. If you're out there, come back in this room." Well, it did. But this time it walked in and then laid on the couch.
Oh, wow. And that couch was there still?
That couch is in the same spot, yes.
Great.
And there's been times since then, we've done EVP sessions, and we'll take this couch, put it right next to that one, and we're all sitting in here in the dark, and we talk about that. And I'll say, if you remember the guys that were filming in here, if you're out in the hallway, please let us know you're here. And that's usually when we get a nice EVP.
Wow. Awesome. There's another part where there's a crawl space that goes under the front of the house, is that right?
Yes.
Am I looking the right way? And Scott Grunewald, we were here last night. He told me about one of his experiences there, kind of being pulled
Yeah.
in back by the ankle. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah.
let people see that.
Okay, let's go that way.
Okay, so this is the infamous crawl space that a few of the investigators that have experienced things up here. I know a mutual friend of ours, Scott, had some experiences here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
Right. We were filming part of our webisode, and one scene, Scott wanted to do some investigating underneath this part of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So he crawled back in there, and I believe on his way back out is when something grabbed his ankles. And at that point, I believe he was talking, if I'm not mistaken, he was talking something about his mother.
Yeah, he said his mother had passed away a couple of days prior to filming
yeah.
this, yeah.
So something happened, and he lost his balance, I know that, and he ended up falling.
Mm-hmm.
He got hurt as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has always frightened him.
Now, when you acquired the house, I'm sure there was all sorts of artifacts and things that were still left in the house. Where did you uncover the most interesting items, I guess?
Believe it or not, out in the dirt field.
Oh, really?
Yes. When I started taking down the hospital wing in the back, and then there was another house on the property,
Mm-hmm.
the big machines were there digging, and I have buckets. I've taken them out of this house. They're at my home.
Yeah.
But buckets of syringes, glass bottles, children's toys,
Oh, wow.
bicycles.
Buried?
They're all buried.
Wow.
So we know there's a lot more out there.
Now, have you experienced any activity at your home, maybe because some of the objects or items that you have in the house?
I don't know if it's because of the objects.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not for sure. I just know that I have had experiences. I'm a single dad,
Mm-hmm.
2-story house. I take my son, put him to bed, and he was too young to get out of his crib, but I could hear something upstairs, and there was many times I would go up there and say out loud,
Yeah.
whoever is in here, please leave. You're not welcome. Leave my son alone. I've had friends come over and watch my son over the years, and they say, Todd, you know there's something in here.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah. I'm not frightened of that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm very empowered, especially when it comes to protecting my son.
Yeah.
So I'm verbal, and people have called me and said, Todd, what do we do if there's something in our home? I always tell them to take charge.
Yeah.
I tell them to open up their front door, walk through their house yelling, get out, you're not welcome here, and walk them out the front door.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's what I do.
Okay. Well, this brings us to the end of our mini tour here at the infamous Wolfe Manor. I want to thank you, Todd, for allowing us into your mansion here and showing us around a little bit. Any last closing comments you want to say?
You know, we just can't wait to be able to open this back up to the public so everybody can come in here and experience something.
I know there's a lot of people that are very interested in getting in. I know you said you have daily requests that people want to come in and investigate. So it was definitely a privilege for me to be able to be here and spend some time with you. And thank you. So from Clovis Sanitarium, aka the Wolfe Manor, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.